Hello and welcome to another video. In this one, we're going to be talking about a new typing puzzle. Yeah, this series isn't dead, I promise. Where we're going to try and prevent passing of star kwargs into a library function, but allow it at runtime just in case we missed it. Anyway, let's jump into it. So, as always, we clone this repo so you can see where it comes from. And they writes code / typing puzzles, and we are going to set up a virtual env. And we're going to install MyPy. This is also, you can see where the code comes from and what version we're running against. In this case, it's 1.18.2. And we are going to look at puzzle 10. Puzzle 10. There we go. So I'm going to make solution.py and we'll take a look at the code here. Okay, so this comes from an example of some code that I've seen in the past where customization of some method was needed. In this case, we're wrapping json.dumps, and it was setting some particular defaults such that every usage of this wrapper function would always have a specific output. And then usually you would set up linters to ban the original one and add whatever behavior you want to this particular function. But this is a very simple version of this where we are just setting separators to this. If we python3 import solution, and we do solution.dumps. I don't know, a dictionary that's, I know integer keys in a JSON dump is a little bit undefined behavior. But anyway, you can see that with those particular separators, there's no white space here. Whereas if we use normal JSON, I know, ugly, you would get white space here. So the intention is to make this more compact, but that's not the point of this puzzle today. The point of this puzzle is a refactor comes along and they're like, well, actually, the way this is written right now, someone could actually set separators to something else and override the behavior of this. We don't really want them to do that. We always want the separators to be like this without any special white space. And maybe it's indent or type objects or sorting keys or any of the various settings that you would want in dumps. Maybe we don't want to be able to customize any of them. So instead we want to change the signature to look like this. However, if we just do this in a really large code base, or maybe in a code base that's used in a bunch of places, or maybe it's in a public library, we're potentially going to break callers that are passing named arguments. For instance, this example down here or this example down here. And so we don't really want to do that. We want some way of changing the behavior such that keyword args is ignored, but at typing time, we want it to be an error, and at runtime, we want it to just silently pass and ignore this. And as we maybe improve the typing coverage of a code base, we'll find the places where we're accidentally passing kwargs where we didn't intend to and stamp them out there. At least that's the idea. That's the basis of this puzzle. You can sort of imagine that this code is provided in a library and the code down here is something that might consume it in a code base or in a larger code base. And so the refactor for this might look something like, well, we don't want kwargs anymore. We're just going to pass separators directly here and no longer deal with kwargs. Kwargs is now unused, and we have this function here. But we do sort of want to type this. I'm going to cheat a little bit on the JSON typing here. There is actually a way to define this using a recursive alias now, sort of. But we're going to do it like this. And for now, we're just going to have this return stir. We'll deal with kwargs in a second, but let's type those first things first. And we'll run MyPy on this and show kind of our problem here. So right now, this is succeeding. However, we don't want this to succeed. We want typed code to produce a typing error, and we want this code to just silently pass. Note that this also could be detected statically, and usually I find it a best practice to use MyPy with check untyped defs. This will cause MyPy to descend into functions that aren't completely typed and still validate that they are, properly typed. But let's look at our hints today before we actually just give away the solution to this. And let's see, readme, we got our hints. I already said this part, I guess. Untyped functions won't by default get type checked. And our hint here is that, is there a type that can't be matched? Some type in the type system, it has to be a special type, that doesn't represent any other type. In type theory, this is what's referred to as a bottom type, as opposed to a top type, which there's sort of two top types in the Python typing system. There's object and any. What's the opposite of that? And the answer to this is never, or no return, or empty union. They're all the same thing. Although I don't think there's a way to represent empty union anymore. I think it was changed to be invalid. You used to be able to say like type union tuple like this, and that was a way to represent an empty union, or I guess even just empty parentheses here. But I think this is not recognized by type checkers anymore and might even just be a diagnostic. But anyway, never is the bottom type in Python, and we can type our ** kwargs as never here. And now we get the behavior that we wanted. If we run mypy on this, you'll see that we get an error on our line 16. Which, look at 16, it's this line here. We want an error at typing time. But this one is allowed to just proceed without erroring. And if we were to call one of these, import solution, solution dot untyped code, I don't know, a list. You can see that even though it passed along that indent equals 2, that was ignored by the underlying thing, and it was allowed to succeed, even though it fails. It would fail the typing if this function were annotated. And in fact, like I said before, if you do check untyped defs, we should get 2 errors now instead of 1. Yeah, you can see here that, you know, we get an argument indent to dunce as incremental type int expected never. Now, I wish there was a better way to improve this error message. Like it should, you know, it'd be nice to be able to say like, did not expect any named arguments, but this is sort of the best you can do with the constraints put forth in the problem right now. And I have used this approach in production before, and seems to work pretty well. I actually really like this. You know, I find that every ** kwargs that sort of gets passed along is a little bit of a smell, and so it's a nice way to migrate to eliminating it while still enabling untyped code to continue. Anyway, hopefully you found this useful. If you have additional puzzles, you can add them on the Discord, which is linked in the description. Or if you have additional ideas, you can also put them in the YouTube comments. But I will see you in the next one.